Hello and welcome to the Answers Yes podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Jim Riley here with Rod Kuntz. Another week, Rod. Fall is in the air.
Oh my gosh. You know, it's my favorite time of year and I feel it. I'm energized. I'm excited. I have extra, I don't know. My mind is alert. Just different.
Yeah.
It's a different feel.
I feel real good about it. My wife's not real happy. She's not ready for the cold yet. She's still sanding on the wood deck outside and wishing for more warm weather, but I'm afraid it's not going to happen. I'm actually looking at snow in Glacier right now. It's beautiful.
Yeah. It is. It's a sign of what's to come.
Yeah. The other thing that I like about where we live, I'm sorry if you don't live in Montana, you listen to the show. Sorry about that. Don't come here though. It's full. It's also hunting season, and it's been fun to watch some of the neighbors come and go and hear their stories, trials and tribulations of hunting. I'll probably get out when rifle season opens up, get out a couple times. If nothing else, as John Fuller would say, my friend, just to take my gun for a walk.
Yes.
So, yep. Probably that's what we'll do.
Nothing wrong with taking your weapons for a walk ever.
Whether we get something or not, that's another story. Look, I have a topic tonight, and it's interesting because I talk about my values, and if you've heard me talk about them, it is God first, family, giving back, being healthy, making time to do all those things. And the last one was business. And so with all that being said, it's no surprise that a lot of my messages or topics are inspired from some of the messages I get at church. And today's topic is coming straight from church. However, it's not the topic of discussion. It was what was done last night at church is what I like so much. And I think it applies so well to business. I want to talk about it here. Do I have you on your edge of your seat?
I'm ready.
So at our church, what our pastor's done every year, I didn't realize it last year. I think I've been going there 3 years. He does what he calls the hot seat. The hot seat. And what that means is for the last 30 days, you can write an email to the church and ask the pastor anything you want. And he literally read as many as he could questions on stage last night and answered them live in what we called the hot seat. Now, some of the questions, I had 5 or 10 people ask this one. So, this is worth 10 people, whatever. And I'm sure he cherry picked the ones that he felt compelled to answer, which was great. There was many great questions in the hot seat, but then he did what he called the fire round. I think that was the term he used, was the fire round. And that was anybody could text right then and there online to the stage. And he just answered the question right then and there. So there was no warm up, no let me have a canned answer for this. And
kind of like we do here.
Kind of like what we do here, but a little bit more on the spot. What was the topic is transparency, is what it is. That he was ultimately transparent to the people that go to church there, his congregation, right? And I think that is such an important way to approach, that's in a sense, that's his business. That's what he does. He's a pastor and it's his job to be transparent to the people, right? They've entrusted him with their time and their convictions. And I think we do the same at work. I think as leaders or entrepreneurs or managers or even co-employees, I think it's our responsibility to be transparent with people and allow two-way communication and that transparency to happen. And oftentimes we forget about that. I think as leaders, we're just focused on, what we think is important. And we forget to ask the people below us, what their thoughts are, or what their questions or concerns are, or involve them in the process. And sometimes we're not even keen enough to explain why we're doing something to help them understand it so that they could probably do a better job too. So the topic is transparency, and I believe we need a lot more of it in the workplace. What do you think?
Well, I think that's always good because it's involving your employees, it's involving your staff. I'm looking at this from a managerial level, first and foremost. And if you are transparent about why you do things, and how you do things, the why of why you do things the way you do them, it helps your people understand where you're coming from so that there's not confusion. You know, if you tell someone, do it this way because, you don't just say, do this, and this is how you do it. You say, we do this because. That's being transparent. That's saying, I'm showing you all of this because, and ultimately, it's going to affect our bottom line, right? You have to connect the dots sometimes. Yeah, we want a clean environment. Why? Because nobody wants to sit down at a messy table. Then they may leave. We may lose a customer. We don't want dirt piling up. It's going to be harder to clean up later. We want to have a clean environment so that we pass for health department inspections, right? And that all affects our bottom line. So connecting the dots, and we can't assume that especially young employees, and maybe even if they're not young in age, but new to a job, you might have somebody switching careers and they may be new to a job. We can't take for granted that they understand the nature of our particular business. And it's our job to really be transparent with them and connect the dots for them. Otherwise, we're going to leave them out there struggling. Yeah. And that's not a good place for any new employee to be. Well, he had me do this and he just barking orders and doing that and telling me all this stuff and it didn't make any sense. Well, whose fault is that? It's the leadership's fault. If people are leaving their job not understanding the full implication of why things are done the way they're done, including advertising and marketing, right? Why are we doing this way? Why are we focusing on that? Well, because we've done the research, right? And it looks like we're missing this demographic. We're trying to reach a new demographic. Or this has been tried in other areas and we're going to try it here and see if it's successful. So I think just being more open. You call it transparency. I'm just going to call it being open and upfront about business and business principles.
Yeah.
Why we do things the way we do.
Yeah, because it makes a significant difference when everybody understands not only what the goal is, because oftentimes we do convey the goal. Hey, we want to sell more widgets. Okay, great. But here's why and here's how. Or this is why we're doing it. And this is what our expectation is from doing it this way. And that gets left out a lot, especially, and I hate to say it, when we look at the environment around us, how many people are looking for employees, right? So there's a desperation that sits in like, oh, I just need a warm body in here. So you get the warm body, then what? Do you just keep that a warm body, or do you take the time and invest in them to teach them the how, the why, and give them the knowledge so that they can succeed? And I think that that's missing a lot of times because I go to some of these businesses around town and I knew that they were short-staffed. Now they have staff, but the staff is walking around like they don't know what they're doing or they could care less, and I have to wonder where that comes from. Have they just been thrown in to fill a slot on the schedule, or has somebody given them the time, care, and attention to help them be the best they can be? And I worry that that's really what it is. Hey, we've just filled another slot, So don't forget to be transparent, to give them the why, to go into detail what that looks like. And Rod, I'll use that to transition a little bit if you like.
Well, I was just going to tag in there real quick
before
you transition.
Yeah, please.
Here's the thing. Transparency takes effort. That's what you're seeing with some of these places where they've got the warm bodies. They're not taking the effort to bring those people in and bring them on. It's a nurturing relationship. Transparency is nurturing, right? It's not just being full disclosure. Some things aren't, the bottom line isn't necessarily, a new hire's business, but they should understand the fundamentals. We can share that, we can show the global picture so that they can get a feel for why we're doing this. And then they feel like they're a part of it. And that takes effort. It's like any relationship, right, Jim? Mm-hmm. It takes effort to be transparent. It takes effort to make connection. And we can't shirk that responsibility, especially as managers and leaders. Now you can transition.
Well, I'll use another story to transition. So one of my consulting clients, we're talking about end of the day money, right? And so you've got the cash register and you've got bills and you've got coins. And what they do is they take all the bills and they put that in for deposit. And then the coins, they just throw in a little bucket. Okay. And whatever happens to that bucket, nobody really knows. It just fills up with coins. And, so the obvious thing is it's easy to deposit just the bills or count just the bills. And so why do you do it that way? And they're like, well, that's how, when we bought this business, that's what they did. I'm like, okay, but you realize that your accountant is trying to match up your deposits on a daily basis to your revenue on a daily basis and is off by, cents or quarters every single day. And probably is racking their brain over, well, how is every day right on the money? And nobody's taking into consideration that you're throwing the coins into a bucket. Right. And they're like, well, that's just how we always done. I'm like, well, that's really not the right way to do it. So sometimes by asking why, you can flush out a problem that is actually creating a cause and effect. And so here's where my transition is systems. Having good systems in place allows you to articulate to your employees or to your partners or to your shareholders how you do things and why. And again, I think sometimes we just jump into the act of selling something or conducting business without putting any systems in place. And Rod, we talk a lot about this in the Young Entrepreneur Syndicate about, starting with a value system and then a goal system and then a business plan, having an actual business plan. And by the way, having, your systems are part of your business plan. How are you going to go to business? What does that look like? What is the system of going to business? I feel like it's another step people skip.
I think you're absolutely right. And I actually addressed this in my book in the Warpath Alliance under R, and it's under respect. Systems are something to be respected, just like our system of government, for example, going to the global scale, right? Our system of government is something to be respected. And you have to respect systems because systems work. Systems give you the framework to conduct fair, honest trade.
Yeah.
And that is a system. And if you don't respect that system, you're going to be in the Bernie Madoff category, right?
Yeah.
or, dare I say it, the hunter category. And it's not, that's a lack of respect for a system. And it's not just a matter of respecting people. You have to respect structure. And, I spent 7 years in the military, and I know it's an odd amount. It was 6 years with a 1-year extension, but you have to respect the systems. When people go in there, a new recruit, everyone gets equalized. It doesn't matter where you're from, your ethnicity, your country of origin, your height, your weight. You get a shave and a haircut. Right.
Yeah.
And everybody looks the same. And then everyone gets the same uniform and everyone is expected to do exactly what they're told to do when they're told to do it. And that creates order. It's an equal, even playing field, and it creates order. Now, I know things are different today. Much of that has eroded, and that's why we have the disorder and the dysfunction. And that's what happens when you don't respect systems. You will end up with dysfunction. You will end up hiring dysfunctional people. You will end up with dysfunction in your organization. You will have the erosion of your structures. And that's a ripe breeding program for failure.
Absolutely. Well, I remember co-consulting a company several years ago, and I brought this other consultant on. And it got to the point where I was sick of hearing it, but he was so right. And he kept talking about SOPs. I was like, what's the big deal? He goes, this place has no standard operating procedures. And I'm like, you know what? You're right. And we spent 6 months building that out together from different perspectives. And, again, I take a look at your business. So here's the 2 learnings today for leadership, entrepreneurs, intrapreneurs, whatever your position might be. First of all, being transparent with the work that you're doing or the work that's required of the people below you. And as Rod suggested, just being honest and open about it and communicate. And then the second part of that is if you can't communicate what's expected of people and why, then take a look at your SOPs, your operating procedures, or your systems, and ensure that there are proper systems in place for everybody to be successful. And if they're not, then take the time, step back and take the time to create them and write them in a way that you can articulate them to your staff. Write them at a second grade level so it's crystal clear to anybody that reads them exactly what the expectations are and the why. And I think the why is equally important because you'll get there together if you've taken the time. And if you do that, you'll find success in what you're trying to accomplish. I guarantee it.
Absolutely. And people deserve the why. It's just like when you went to your parents when you were a kid. Can I get a turtle? No. Why? What's the first question that toddlers start asking? Why? 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 They deserve an answer. It's not just because, or maybe, or we'll see, or we'll talk about it later. Everyone has that childlike curiosity and need to know. And it's up to us to take the time and effort, like I said, to address the why. Mm-hmm. And even if they're not asking the question, we should assume the question. A good leader will assume the question why. When you're going through your standard operating procedures, tell them the why of it. Not just this is the way we do things, but this is the why we do things. Little extra time, little extra effort. And I'm telling you, you will 10x your business. If you've not been doing this, you will 10x your business. I promise.
Yeah. And let me give a live example of a why and how it brings value to your team. I met with your lovely daughter yesterday, Rod, Taylor. If you didn't know, Taylor owns a company called Church and State Designs, and it's fashionable self-reliance purses. Basically, they're concealed carry purses for women. And so I met Taylor at one of the vendors that I connected her with. And what she needed to do was update. There's a strap. There's a Velcroed restraining strap within her design. And she says, I need to change out all those straps. So I'm going to come down and, meet with the buyer and fix these. And I said, okay. So I'm down there. And I said, so what's the deal exactly? And she showed me how in the past she used to glue the Velcro to basically the restraining strap mechanism. And it was starting to peel up a little bit. I mean, she showed me, right? And just barely at all. And she hasn't received any complaints on it, but she knew from her own use of the purse over time, which has probably been going on a year now, that glue starts to peel up to the point where she didn't like it. The craftsmanship of it was no longer to her standards. So what she was doing is replacing all those straps with new Velcro, but she took the time, I believe, to not only glue it, but to put a stitch in it. So she started sewing it down, which is obviously another step. Now, she didn't have to do this. She probably could have sold all those purses and nobody would have known otherwise. But because she cares about the craftsmanship of her product and her name behind it, she wanted to make sure that every purse that was still for sale was up to her perfection. And what's cool about this is down the road, when she's this massive company, and yes, Taylor, you will be a big, successful company if you keep this up. When people are out there selling that purse in the marketplace, they've got an extra selling point. And what that would look like is, hey, by the way, instead of just, quickly gluing the Velcro down, we actually take the time to stitch it so that this is long lasting, right? These are little perfections that have been added with a why. And down the road, the salespeople will be able to give the why and how they got to that point. We've constantly improved this product design through, trial and error. All of a sudden, the story builds. And that's why it's so important to share with your team the whys. So anyways, it's just a live example. I kind of stretched it out a little bit, I think, but you get the point.
Well, and the point is, we've been talking about this now, I think, for the last 3 weeks on our syndicate calls too, where taking a deeper look at your business, looking at your business and your product or your service from the nano level, really digging deep, because that's where you'll find the gold. Yeah, you can find the gold on the surface sometimes and get lucky and hit a home run right out of the gate. But most people have to dig and work for the gold. And going to the nano level takes effort. So this is part of that process right there. You want to find the gold? Boy, get your leather gloves on, put your work boots on, and you might be prepared to go through a few pair before you hit it.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. So, all right. Well, that's been 20 minutes. Not that it had to be 20 minutes, more or less, but nonetheless, thanks for tuning in. If you like what we're talking about here, we'd love to have you as part of our Young Entrepreneur Syndicate. You can go to our website and become a member. It's $99 a month. You get 4 weekly Zoom calls where we have topics just like this, any live Q&A to answer all the questions you might have about business. Doesn't even have to be about the topic of the night. We want to help you, genuinely want to help you and be a part of the process. We've had a number of successful entrepreneurs go through our membership. Most of them are still community members after a year and several months. So, Rod, thank you for all your efforts to add value to that group.
Well, thank you, Jim. It's a pleasure to help other people. That's what I will say about that. Absolute pleasure.
Yeah, and I hope they, I believe that they do see that. So anyways, if you've got questions or comments, you want to hear a specific topic for the show, hit us up. You can find us on all of our social media channels, or look up the website, youngentrepreneurs.syndicate.com. There's an info at. We'll take all your subjects there. So, Rod, have a great balance of your week. Enjoy some of this fall weather, and new topic next week, buddy.
All right. Be safe on the road. I know you're going to be out there in the thick of it. I pray for good weather and success on the trail.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. All right. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in.